Hi guys, and welcome to the highly anticipated Photoshop tutorial. You guys wanted me to do a tutorial how I use Photoshop for my paintings, and I'm so excited to finally do one and show you how I'm going to do it. I will have a list with all the shortcuts that you need somewhere in the video so that you have always access to it, because shortcuts are probably the most important thing that you will need to just work with Photoshop in a just useful way and in a fast way. I'm also using a tablet, and don't be shocked, it is just a very inexpensive, affordable child tablet that I have probably since, I don't know, 6 or 7 years. I need this because I'm going to paint in Photoshop too, and I just found it more helpful to use a tablet. But as I said, if you want to do it like I do it, you really just need a very super cheap tablet. You can probably just buy one at eBay. Today I just thought that I will make a fairy mock-up for you, and I already got some pictures from the internet just to show you how I'm going to do a mock-up. And the first thing I'm going to do is to make a new file here, and I'm using centimeters, and I wanted to make a 25 big canvas, and for resolution I choose 300. That's my canvas size. I'm going to print the finished drawing out and trace it onto my, for example, watercolor paper or my watercolor panel, so I'm making sure that this is the final size that I'm using. And for fairies, I find that dolls are the most beautiful thing, so I'm going to use this one and I'm going to change it. So the first thing that I do is I go here into the layers tab, and I'm just dragging the background into my new painting. Now I'm gonna change the size of this one, and you're doing it with the shortcut Control T. You see that now I have the transformation cascade around this around my layer, and I'm just making it larger and smaller. So you need to press or hold the Shift key while changing the size of your image here. When you don't hold the Shift key, you will just change the size like this, and we don't want this. So hold the Shift key, change the size like you want it. I'm always thinking about how large my painting will be, so the face is always pretty small, so I'm probably going with this one here. This might be okay regarding the size. I also want to show her hand, so I'm first changing the size. I'm just clicking on this little thing here, just click like that, and now she has the larger size. Now what I'm going to do is I click on this tool here on the, how's it called? I don't know the name. Lasso tool. And with my pen, I can more or less easily cut out the arm. To select the different lasso types, you have to press the right mouse button. In the case of the pen, there's a little button on it, but it depends on your tool. So I'm going to use the polygonal lasso tool, and I'm just also make sure that you have marked the layer here. The layers are also very important. If you don't have any idea of Photoshop, don't be frustrated. I didn't watch any Photoshop tutorials at all. I was just trying it out and play around with it. You can totally do it like that. You can also watch additional Photoshop tutorials on YouTube. This is always helpful. Maybe you just don't do it like I did, because it took forever to learn when you don't really watch Photoshop tutorials. So this is your layer box. This is important. Like, this is a background layer, this is our picture layer, and we are having more layers the further we move along with this picture. So I have the tool here marked, and I'm just selecting here the points of the arm, like this, just more or less roughly. I really like the hand and this stick that she holds, so I'm really just roughly cutting out the arm. And to end this selection, you have to kind of touch the end of this line and just click, and now we have it. What we are going to do now is clicking the right mouse button like this, and then we click layer via cut. Now what we did do is we cut out the arm and made a new layer out of it. I also just noticed that I have in my lasso tool the feather here applied. This just means how sharp the edge of your cutted selection is. So it's a bit blurry and smooth around the edges, but this is great. This will help us with the image. So what we are going to do now is we are changing the tool with V. This is this tool up right here. What is this? Move tool. This is the move tool, and the shortcut is V. So I'm pressing V. Now we have the move tool, and now I'm checking if I have selected the right layer. Yes, I do. I have selected layer 2, and now I can just move the arm. What I'm going to do now is also go under the view menu here, and I deselect snap. Snap just means that you can't really move it around. It always snaps to the edges. I don't want that now. So I'm now going to select our fairy here, and I think I might even make her a little bit bigger like this, and place her in the middle of the composition. Now I go back to the arm layer. I will also call it arm because this is helpful. Just double click on the name of the layer, and now you can rename it. Now I'm again pressing Ctrl and T. This will get me to the transformation tool, and now I'm just turning the angle of the arm here, and I can just do this with my pen, and I'm going to make the arm bigger because we also made the body bigger, and I'm pressing Shift again so that the arm is bigger. And yeah, this is too big, like this. I also just I need to cut out the upper arm here as well, because now she doesn't have an upper arm. So I'm going to show you how I do it then. I'm just playing around and see how the hand looks good in this one. I'm not sure how I'm going to do it. So most of my Photoshop work is a lot of trying out and see how things look. It's not that I always know what I'm going to do. Sometimes it's just trying things out. I want her hand, definitely. So I might go with this position. You can also just press enter instead of clicking on the symbol. This is what I do now. I just press enter, and then I'm cutting out another piece of her arm. Make sure you've selected the right layer here. Just cut. I think I cut this piece here out like this, and then I click the right mouse button, and then I select again layer via cut. This is now our upper arm. I place the upper arm layer below our arm layer, And now I'm pressing Ctrl T again and transform the arm layer so that we have kind of an arm here. Of course, it is way too short. So I will just change it a bit, and I press the right mouse button here. And the transform layers has a lot of different things that we can do as well. For example, we can use warp. And this just makes, look what we can do. We can just change this complete thing here, and it almost looks a bit more like an arm. It's not perfect, but we can work with this. I'm also going to put the upper arm layer under the fairy layer, so that it is under this clothing here. I'm going to copy the upper arm layer again because I want to make this arm here. I want to give her an elbow because right now she doesn't have an elbow. So to copy a layer, the fastest way is to use Ctrl and J. So I'm using Ctrl J, and now we are having a copy of the upper arm. I am going to rename this with elbow, and now I am using the V, the move tool again, so I'm pressing V. I will deselect the auto select function here. Auto select function allows you to select every layer where you click. So if I click on this, I'm moving the fairy. If I click on this, I can move the arm. There's the fairy layer over it, so I might accidentally click on the fairy layer, so I'm using, well, what did I do here? I am using auto select. I deselect auto select, and this means that it doesn't matter on where I am, on which point on the picture I am, I will always select my layer that I chose in the layer window here. I hope this wasn't too confusing. So I can now move this elbow layer here, and the first thing I am doing is to move the elbow layer on top of the arm layer because I want it on top of it. Now I'm using Ctrl T again, and I'm turning this whole thing. I think I'm going to flip it horizontal. Again, just use the right mouse button to open this menu in the transformation window, in the transformation mode. So I flipped it, and I think this resembles a little bit like an elbow. So I'm just playing around with it and see how I can make a good elbow out of this thing. Okay, I'm pressing the Enter key, and I'm moving it under the arm layer. So it's not the most beautiful thing in the world, I know. Another thing that is important to know when you want to change and alter and take back things of your picture is that you use the mask function. The mask function is crucially important, and I will show you. I wanted to show it a little bit further in the tutorial, but I just think that I can show it to you now. Here on the right side we have the different layers, and I want to take back something of this layer. I could just choose the eraser, but I don't want to do it because I can't undo it. Once something is erased, it's gone, so I can't really get it back. So instead of using the eraser, I use a mask, and you find masks here in this little menu. You will probably never use it because it's so small, but this here is the mask button, and you can add a mask to all of your layers and to groups as well. So I'm clicking on the mask here. Now I can select the layer, or I can select the mask, and the mask is always white. That means that there's nothing covered, and it will not cover anything. But once I will paint into this mask with black. Let's do this. Here's black. I selected black, and now I'm going to use a brush tool. I am pressing B, This is the brush tool here. And I'm also selecting the right size of the brush. I'm always using the standard Photoshop brushes, nothing fancy. This is a good size of the brush. The opacity here means how opaque your brush will be. So I'm going here with 97%. Now check what will happen when I paint with black onto this mask. So, okay, this will happen oftentimes. I selected the layer and not the mask, so I'm using Control Z to undo it. Now I also need black here, and then I select the mask again. So I decided to show you all the mistakes so that you can see when you do the same mistake what happened to you. Okay, so when I paint with black on this mask, it is as if I would use an eraser. So I can just paint along the edges and get a nice shape. So let's say I did a mistake and I did that. Oh, this was too much. So what I'm going to do is, instead of using black, I'm using white. And then I go over this particular area again, and everything I just took away from this area is there again, because this is just a mask. It doesn't destroy your image. I use masks all the time. It is super important. So you can apply the mask. When you are happy with what you did, you can apply the mask with the right mouse button. If you then select apply layer mask, the mask will be applied, and like this, and it then really erased the parts that you didn't want. I don't know if I want to, I think I will let it like this, or I don't know, maybe not. So I'm just using Control Alt and D, so it will go back several steps. Control Z only takes you back one step, but Control plus Alt plus the Z will take you back several steps. Now I'm going to change a bit the form of the elbow here. Just make it a bit better. And to switch between the black and the white quickly, because you want to add and then you want to take away. I use the eraser tool on the mask itself. To use the eraser tool, you have to push the key E for eraser. So this is my eraser now. It's a bit small, so I'm going to change it and make it larger. Larger, like this. Opacity, like this. And then I can take away from the mask. And when I then press B again, I have the brush tool. So I can just easily change the shape of this layer. This is so helpful, and I use it all the time. Now let's add a mask to the arm. Again, click here on the mask, select the mask, press B for the brush tool, and now what happened? Oh, no, press E, because I wanted to take away from the image. So I'm pressed E for eraser, and then I just take something away from the arm, like this. I now want to add a bit here to the bottom, and for that I will go to the upper arm layer, and I'm pressing B again for brush, and I just take a bit of this color here. I make my brush a bit smaller, and I'm just painting it in here. Another thing that is important, when you use the Alt key while you have the brush activated, so you have the brush and then you can press the Alt key, it will instantly show you this tool here. This tool here is called Pipette, and it will change your color. So if I'm going over this brown and I have the Alt key pressed and then I click on it, it will change it to brown. And then I click, then I like the brush key, the brush tool is still activated, so I can just paint over it. I want to choose this darker color here and just painting over it. Choosing this lighter color here. I change the opacity here because then just painting is a bit easier. The eraser to erase something. And now I have an arm. The arm isn't the most beautiful thing. I would work longer on it, but I just wanted to show you a bit of the process here. We already used a set of different tools here. I hope it was not too confusing. I will now show you how I want to add the background. I will just use the same tools, but maybe it will be a bit more easier for you to understand if I just repeat the steps over and over again. Like, this is always then easier to understand. What I do now is I have arm, elbow, fairy, upper arm, all of it should always stay together. So when I move the fairy, I don't want the arm to move, obviously. So what I'm going to do is that I click the upper layer here, then I press Shift, and then I select this layer here. So now I have all layers selected, and now I will add them to a group. This little folder here is the group button. I will just click on it like this, and now we have a group. I will call this group Fairy. This is our fairy group. When we move the group, be careful that you select group here or just have auto select not applied here. So when I click on it, I will move the whole group. This is exactly what I want. I now want to add a background to the fairy. So I have to cut her out, obviously. To do that, I'm adding a mask layer to our group. So I'm having the group selected here. I'm clicking on the mask layer. Now I have a mask here. Then I'm just selecting the brush tool with the key B. Here is it again. I'm changing my brush, make it a little bit bigger like this. And I also want to change the opacity because I really want to have a clear, clean cut out figure. Make sure you have the layer selected, make sure you have black as your color, because black will erase, will cover your picture and will like erase the picture, if you know what I mean. So I have black marked, I have the mask marked, and now I can just cut out the figure. And for this I can only use my pen, because with the mouse it wouldn't be possible for me. So I'm cutting out here the different parts of her dress. Just whoop, Control V, this was too much. And just paying attention to her form. I was wondering if this is an arm here. I don't know. I will remove this just. I might add another. I can always add another arm if I want to. So just going along here these her hair strands like this. And I'm being careful around her hair. Cutting this out. This is just like painting almost, because I'm using my pen for this, my tablet pen. To get into this area, I am using a smaller brush size, and this is my navigator here. I'm just clicking on this button here. When I press the space key, I'm getting the hand tool, and with the hand tool I can move my canvas. So this is handy. This is a bit too close. So, and now I'm continue with cutting her out here like this. You can pretty much make it very clean or not so clean. I want to have this area here clean, so I'm using the eraser tool. Again, press E to get the eraser. The eraser will now erase the mask, which will show you something, which will reveal the underlying image again. Just switching back from eraser to brush all the time, for me, is the best way to work with masks and to cut out certain things and images. So I think she's cut out pretty okay. I will not leave this here, obviously. This doesn't look like something. I want to move the fairy again, so I'm selecting V, the move tool, move her here. Okay, now let's add the background. I already researched some pictures from the internet for the background. I think I have different images. I have this one here, and I have a castle. I think I'm going with this one. And what I do is that I just drag from the one file the background layer just in her file here. Obviously the background layer belongs in the background, so I'm dragging it here under the group. Make sure that you don't accidentally drag your layer in the group. So when this little border around the group appears, that means that you would drag it in the group. I don't want that, I just want it under the group. So you have to wait for this double line, like the double lines here. Now it is under the group. Obviously the background is too small, so I'm pressing Ctrl T and I'm having the transformation tool again. And what I do now is that I just make it bigger. Make sure that you have the shift key, that you hold the shift key while changing the size, otherwise it looks like that, and we don't want that. We want it to change the size accordingly to the proportions. I'm not very happy with the color scheme, to be honest. This is too much greeny and pink, but we can change it. I'm just looking how this might be interesting, just changing and playing around with it, because I have the impression that the fairy get lost. So maybe like this. Okay, now I want to change the color of the background. Here, this little thing is crucial as well. This little symbol is for the adjustment layers. So all these layers adjust and change the colors of your image, the saturation, brightness, contrast, everything you really need. And you can also just change this picture individual with an adjustment. For example, you can change like the saturation, but I might want to change it later because I might have changed my mind. And once I changed the saturation or the colors, it will be impossible to get the initial colors back. So I always work with adjustment layers instead of changing the picture completely, and then I can't redo it or can't undo it. So I'm always using these adjustment layers here. Let's say I want to get all this pink and magenta out of the image. I'm choosing the hue and saturation adjustment layer like this, and now the layer is applied to everything that is beneath it. So let's say I just, for example, change like the colors of the background. I know it looks ugly, but now I might paint something here. For example, like, so let's say I just paint like a blue heart here, and I'm having the adjustment layer active. It will also change the color of the heart, but I only want it to change the color of the background. So what I do is that I drag the adjustment layer directly over the background layer. and then I attach it to it. What I do now is that I restrict the effects of the adjustment layer to this background layer so that it will only affect the background layer. For that I'm using a shortcut because I forgot where to find this menu in Photoshop. The shortcut is Control, Alt and G. So this is a small arrow that appears and it will group this one layer to the one layer here. And like it will not affect anything else than this one layer here. So I will delete this heart here and work on the colors. This is the adjustment layer here, so this is the effect. I'm clicking on the effect. I'm using here master for all the colors, putting it back to normal. And now I only want to change the magenta tones. So I'm selecting magentas and I change the saturation so that there's not so much magenta anymore. Well, it didn't work that much. I will still have a lot of reds here. So I'm selecting the reds and just changing the saturation of the reds. I'm not happy with probably all the colors here, so I might change the greens as well, make them less saturated. Here I can change the overall tone, make them maybe more turquoise if I want to. The yellows as well I'm not so happy with. Let's see which color would be good. Maybe turquoise, saturation, maybe just black. Yeah, I'm not super excited about this background, to be honest. I just chose some pictures that I found on the internet. So normally I'm researching a long time and I'm also changing the backgrounds a long time until I'm happy with it. So normally I'm not happy with the first two versions. It can take hours until I'm okay with it. So what we can do as well to make a better color for the background, making a new layer. I'm doing a new layer by pressing Control, Shift and N. This is the window for a new layer. I'm naming it background color layer, and I want to background blue, so maybe I'm using here this blue, and this is the fill tool, so I'm clicking on the fill tool, selecting a nice color, then I'm selecting the right layer here, and then I'm filling in the color. And here this little window shows you all the effects that one layer can have, like how a layer is shown, not additional effects like the adjustment layer effects, but how a layer is perceived or shown. I don't know how to how to describe it, but when you use Windows and not Mac, and you click on an effect and then use the arrow keys, like the down arrow key, you can go through all the effects here. On Mac it doesn't work. You have to select the effects individually. But on Windows, you can just browse through the effects and see what looks nice. This is the thing that I do also all the time, especially when I'm not happy with like the colors or just with and everything. I'm just trying out these effects and look if there is something interesting. This might be interesting, but maybe not. So multiply makes everything dark. This is very dark. Maybe it's like a Gothic fairy then. Gothic fairy picture. I think I like this one. So you can also change the intensity and the opacity of a layer. So here, to change it, I just change here opacity, and then I can decide how much the layer should fill the background. yeah, so you can just play around with it. Add another arm here on the side if you like, because it looks weird. Also, I would also just remove this stick here and everything. Yeah, I think this was a lot of stuff for you for the first Photoshop tutorial. I know there are so many shortcuts and things. If you liked it, let me know. I'm happy to make more of these tutorials for you. And I hope it was helpful. And I hope I see you in the next one. Bye bye!